There is a reason your eyes stopped here. There is a reason you didn't scroll past. There is a reason something in your spirit whispered, "Wait, this feels different." Because it is different. This is not just another message. This is not just another video. This is not just another moment in your day that you will forget by tomorrow. No, this is a divine interruption, a moment where heaven itself has stepped into your timeline and said, "Pause. Listen. This one is for you." You felt it, haven't you? That strange tension in your life lately, that feeling like something is about to shift. But you can't explain how. That quiet exhaustion from fighting the same battles over and over again, the same patterns, the same disappointments, the same emotional loops that seem to restart just when you think you finally moved on. It's like living in a cycle you never consciously chose but somehow keep repeating. And you've asked yourself questions you didn't even say out loud. Why does this keep happening to me? Why does it feel like I get so close and then everything resets? Why do I feel like something is ending but it never fully ends? Listen carefully, because this is where everything changes. Archangel Michael is not speaking randomly. He does not interrupt without purpose. And today, his message is clear, direct, and filled with urgency. The cycle you've been trapped in is about to close. But here's the part that should make your spirit lean in even closer. Not everyone will hear this message. Not everyone will recognize this moment. Not everyone will be spiritually awake enough to understand what is happening in the next 24 hours. But you are here. Which means something about your spirit is still sensitive, still connected, still able to recognize when heaven is calling your name. And that is not a small thing. Because right now, something is happening beyond what your physical eyes can see. The atmosphere around your life is shifting. Widely. Intentionally. Powerfully. It may not look dramatic on the outside yet, but inside, in the unseen realm, decisions are being made. Cycles are being reviewed. Battles are being concluded. And a final declaration is being prepared. You may have thought your delays were random. You may have believed your struggles were just bad timing or unfortunate circumstances. But what if I told you none of it was random? What if the delays had a deadline? What if the struggle had an expiration date? What if the cycle you've been stuck in was never meant to last forever but only until this exact moment? Because July 19th is not just another day. It is a marker. A spiritual checkpoint. A moment heaven has been building toward, quietly aligning events, orchestrating timing, and positioning you for something you didn't even realize was coming. And now, here you are, right on the edge of it. That restlessness you've been feeling, that subtle pull in your spirit, that sense that something is ending, even if nothing around you has visibly changed yet. That's not anxiety. That's awareness. That's your spirit picking up on something your mind hasn't fully understood yet. Because something is ending. Not gradually. Not eventually. But decisively. And here's what makes this moment even more powerful. Heaven is not asking for your permission. Heaven is not waiting for perfect timing. Heaven is not negotiating with the cycle anymore. It is declaring, it's over. Before you see it, before you feel it fully, before anyone else around you understands it, the decision has already been made. And you were chosen to hear it first. Not because you're perfect. Not because you're the strongest. But because somewhere along the way, despite everything, you didn't completely disconnect from the truth. You kept going. You kept questioning. You kept searching. Even when you were tired, even when you were confused, even when nothing made sense, you didn't fully shut down. And that's why this message found you. Because in the next 24 hours, something will begin to shift in a way that cannot be reversed. A cycle that has followed you for longer than you realize, a pattern that has shaped your emotions, your decisions, your relationships is about to meet its end. But this is just the beginning of what you need to understand. Because what's actually happening in these next 24 hours is far deeper than you think. Type "I am ready for the shift" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 1919 is now activated around you. Something has already started. Even if you cannot see it yet, even if nothing around you looks dramatically different, even if your surroundings feel quiet, normal, and change, something has already begun to move. And the reason you feel this subtle tension in your spirit right now is because you are standing inside a moment that is extremely rare. The next 24 hours are not ordinary time. They are not just another passing day. They are not just another cycle of morning and night. They are a spiritual window, a narrow, intentional period where heaven accelerates what has been delayed and concludes what has been lingering for far too long. This is the kind of timing that does not come often, and when it does not wait for anyone to fully understand it before it moves forward. And that is why you feel this urgency building. Have you noticed how lately time itself feels different? Moments feel heavier. Decisions feel more important. Even small interactions seem to carry a strange weight, as if something bigger is attached to them. You may have brushed it off, telling yourself it is just stress, just overthinking, just emotion. But it is not. It is awareness. It is your spirit sensing that the clock has shifted from waiting to activation. Because when Archangel Michael speaks about the next 24 hours, he is not speaking symbolically. He is not using poetic language to inspire you. He is revealing a countdown that has already begun. And here is what most people will miss. They will go through these 24 hours distracted. They will treat it like any other day. They will ignore the subtle signs, the quiet nudges, the internal shifts. And because of that, they will miss the alignment that was meant to position them for what comes next. But you are being warned ahead of time. You are being made aware before the shift becomes visible. Because once this window closes, it does not reopen the same way again. This is not about fear. This is about precision. Heaven moves with exact timing. Nothing is rushed, but nothing is delayed beyond its appointed moment. And right now, you are standing at the edge of a moment that has been building behind the scenes for longer than you realize. Think about everything you have been through recently. The delays that didn't make sense. The emotional exhaustion that seemed to come out of nowhere. The repeated patterns that made you question if anything would ever truly change. What if all of it was leading to this exact 24-hour window? What if everything you've experienced had been positioning you, not for another cycle, but for the end of one? Because this is what Archangel Michael is revealing. The cycle does not end randomly. It ends when heaven declares that its purpose has been fulfilled. And when that declaration is made, there is no extension, no negotiation, no delay. It simply ends. And the next 24 hours are the closing moments of that declaration being carried out in your life. This is why your awareness matters so much right now. Because during this time, things may begin to surface. Conversations may happen that feel unexpected. Realizations may come that shift your entire perspective. Emotions you thought were buried may rise one last time, not to trap you, but to release you. You may even feel moments of confusion, as if your mind is trying to hold on to what your spirit is already letting go of. Do not mistake that for regression. That is closure. That is the cycle making its final attempt to remain relevant before it is permanently shut down. And this is where your role becomes critical. Because while heaven is declaring the end, you must align with it. You cannot cling to what is being removed. You cannot revisit what is being closed. You cannot emotionally invest in what is already losing its hold over you. This is not the time to go backward. This is the time to become still, observant, and deeply aware of what is shifting inside you. Because the signs will not be loud. They will be subtle, precise, intentional. A sudden sense of clarity where there was once confusion. A quiet detachment from something that used to affect you deeply. An inner knowing that something has finished, even if no external confirmation has arrived yet. That is how you will know the clock is moving. That is how you will recognize that you are in alignment with this moment. The next 24 hours are not asking you to force anything. They are asking you to notice, to recognize what no longer fits, to release what no longer belongs, to stand firm in the understanding that something in your life has reached its final moment, whether others see it or not. Because when heaven says, it's over, it does not wait for human validation. It moves, and you are being prepared to move with it. Type "I align with divine timing" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 2020 is now activated around your path. There is something you've been carrying longer than you were ever meant to. Not just a situation, not just a season, but a pattern, a loop, a cycle that seemed to follow you no matter how much effort you put into escaping it. And what made it even more exhausting was not just the repetition, but the hope that came with it every single time. Because every time it started again, it didn't look the same. It came in a different form, a different person, a different opportunity, a different emotional experience. And yet the ending always felt familiar. You thought, this time will be different. You told yourself, this is finally the breakthrough. You believe it. This is where it changes. But somehow, something would shift, something would collapse, something would redirect, and you would find yourself back in that same emotional space, asking the same quiet question. Why does this keep happening? And the truth is, it was never random. This cycle did not continue because you were weak. It did not repeat because you failed. It did not persist because you were blind. It remained because it had not yet reached its divine conclusion. There are cycles in life that are not broken by effort alone. They are not ended simply because you are tired of them. They are not closed just because you recognize them. They continue until heaven decides that their purpose, whether for growth, awareness, or preparation, has been fulfilled. And this is what makes this moment so powerful. Because the cycle you've been facing, the one that refused to end, the one that tested your patience, your strength, your faith, your understanding, has now reached its final point. But before it closes, you need to understand something clearly. This cycle was shaping you in ways you could not see while you were inside it. It was teaching you discernment, so you could recognize patterns faster. It was building emotional resilience, so you would not break under pressure. It was sharpening your awareness, so you could sense what was real and what was not. Even the frustration, even the confusion, even the moments where you felt like giving up were all part of a process that was preparing you for this exact point in time. Because if this cycle had ended earlier, you would have walked into your next phase carrying the same blind spots. If it had broken too soon, you would have repeated it again in a different form. If it had closed without full awareness, you would have mistaken temporary relief for permanent transformation. But now something is different. You are not the same person who first entered this cycle. You see more clearly now. You feel more deeply now. You question more intelligently now. And most importantly, you no longer accept what once felt normal. That shift within you is not accidental. That is the sign that the cycle has lost its hold. Because cycles only survive when they are unrecognized or emotionally fed. But the moment you begin to see them clearly, the moment you begin to detach from their emotional grip, the moment you stop reacting the same way, they begin to weaken. And right now, this cycle is at its weakest point. That is why you may feel a strange mix of emotions. Part of you feels ready to move forward. Part of you feels uncertain about what comes next. Part of you feels a quiet detachment from things that once consumed you. That is not confusion. That is transition. That is the moment where the cycle is losing its power but has not yet fully disappeared. And here is the most important part you need to hear. Cycles do not end quietly. They often try one last time to pull you back. They may present a familiar situation, hoping you will respond the same way. They may trigger an old emotion, hoping you will react from your past self. They may recreate a moment that looks almost identical to something you've already experienced, just to see if you will step back into it. This is not coincidence. This is the cycle testing whether it still has access to you. But this time you are not the same. This time you are aware. This time you can see it for what it is. And that changes everything. Because the moment you choose not to respond the same way, the moment you refuse to re-enter what you've already outgrown, the moment you stand still instead of stepping back into the loop, that is the exact moment the cycle breaks. And this is why Archangel Michael is bringing this message to you now. Because in the next 24 hours, you may be presented with something that looks familiar, something that feels like a repeat, something that resembles what you've already experienced. But it is not there to trap you. It is there to reveal whether you are ready to close it. And you are. You have already done the internal work, even if you didn't realize it. You have already shifted, even if you didn't see it happening. You have already outgrown the version of yourself that kept this cycle alive. Now, all that remains is the final moment of choice. Will you respond the same way, or will you finally walk away from what no longer belongs in your life? Because heaven has already made its decision. The cycle is over, but your alignment will determine how smoothly you step out of it. Type "I break the cycle" now in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 3030 is now activated around your life. As this cycle comes to its final end, understand this: every message like this is not just meant for you, but for countless others still trapped in the same loop you are now breaking free from. When you choose to support this mission through Super Thanks or PayPal, you are not giving to a channel. You are sowing light into someone else's darkness, helping another soul hear the exact word they need before their moment passes. Scripture declares, "Give, and it shall be given unto you." And this is not just written. It is alive, speaking directly into your moment right now. I feel led to say this clearly. When you act in alignment with this message, you activate something beyond the physical. You become part of heaven's delivery system. The same way this message reached you at the perfect time, your seed ensures it reaches someone else standing on the edge of their breakthrough. Do not delay what your spirit is prompting you to do. Step into this moment with intention. Sow into the mission, and watch how heaven responds. There comes a moment in every prolonged battle where the struggle is no longer being debated, it is being decided. Not by people, not by circumstances, not by your emotions or your efforts, but by heaven itself. And right now, whether you fully understand it yet or not, you are standing inside that moment. Because what had been happening behind the scenes is not random movement, it is judgment. Not judgment in the way the world defines it, filled with punishment and fear, but divine judgment, where every delay, every injustice, every hidden force working against you had been reviewed, examined, and brought before a higher authority. There's a courtroom you cannot see, a place where nothing is hidden, a place where intentions are revealed, a place where every cycle you have endured has been observed in full clarity. And for a long time, it may have felt like nothing was happening. It may have felt like the silence meant nothing was being done. It may have felt like your struggles were unnoticed. It may have felt like the delays had no accountability attached to them. But silence does not mean absence. Silence often means that a decision is being formed. And now that decision has been made, Archangel Michael does not come with uncertainty. He does not arrive with questions. He does not speak in possibilities when the outcome is still being determined. When he speaks like this, it is because the verdict has already been released. And the verdict over your situation is simple, direct, and irreversible. It is over. It might end. It could change. It will improve over time. Though, is finished. The cycle has reached its conclusion not because of chance, but because heaven has ruled that its purpose is complete. Every lesson that needed to be learned had been delivered. Every layer of awareness that needed to be uncovered had been revealed. Every moment of endurance that was required of you has been fulfilled. And once heaven declares completion, nothing can extend what has already been closed. This is what you need to understand deeply. There are situations in life that feel like they depend on external outcomes. You may have believed that something needed to happen physically before you could move forward. You may have thought that certain people needed to change, certain doors needed to open, or certain answers needed to arrive before the cycle could truly end. But that is not how divine closure works. Heaven does not wait for the visible to align before making a decision. Heaven declares first and the visible follows, which means the moment the verdict is spoken in the spiritual realm, the outcome is already set, whether the physical world has caught up to it yet or not. And this is why you may feel something shifting inside you before anything changes outside of you. A quiet certainty, a calm detachment, a sense that something has already been resolved, even without proof. That is not your imagination. That is confirmation. Because when heaven closes something, it begins internally before it manifests externally. The external changes will come. They will unfold in ways that may surprise you, ways that may not even match what you originally expected. But the decision itself has already been made. And once the decision is made, there is no reversal, no reopening, no negotiation, no return to what once was. Even if it tries to appear again, even if it looks familiar, even if it attempts to draw your attention one last time, it no longer carries authority over your life, because authority has been removed. This is where many people get confused. They think that because something reappears, it still has power. But reappearance does not equal authority. Sometimes, what has already been closed will make one final appearance, not because it is still active, but because it has not yet been fully recognized as finished. And this is your moment to recognize it, to see clearly that what once held weight in your life no longer does, to understand that what once controlled your emotions no longer has access, to accept that what once defined your experience has reached its final point, because the verdict has already been issued, and Archangel Michael stands as the enforcer of that verdict, not in aggression, not in force, but in absolute certainty. He stands to ensure that what heaven has closed remains closed, and you are not being asked to fight anymore. You are not being asked to prove anything anymore. You are not being asked to struggle for an outcome that has already been decided. You are being asked to accept it, to align with it, to stop looking for confirmation in the external when the decision has already been made in the unseen. Because the moment you fully accept that it is over is the moment you step out of it completely, not gradually, not partially, but fully. And that is what is happening now. The courtroom has spoken. The decision is final. And whether the world around you sees it yet or not, your life has already shifted. Type IT is finished in the comments if you receive this message. Lesson code 4040 is now activated around your destiny. There are moments in life when you feel like you are standing alone. Moments when the weight becomes too much, when the repetition becomes too exhausting, when the silence becomes too loud and you begin to wonder if anyone truly sees what you've been carrying. You may not have said it out loud, but you have felt it deeply. The sense that you have been fighting something invisible, something persistent, something that refuses to fully release its grip. And yet, what you could not see is that you were never standing alone in the first place. Because when a cycle reaches its breaking point, when a battle reaches its final stage, when heaven prepares to declare it's over, it does not leave that moment unguarded. It sends a presence, not symbolic, not distant, but active, intentional, and fully engaged. This is where Archangel Michael steps in, not as a concept, not as a story, but as a force of divine authority that stands between you and what has been trying to hold you back. Michael does not arrive when things are easy. He does not step in when there is no resistance. He is a sign when there is something worth protecting, something worth defending, something worth closing with precision and power. And right now that something is you. Your life. Your transition. Your moment of release. You may not have seen the battles that have been happening on your behalf. You may not have understood why certain things never fully collapsed, even when they seemed like they would. You may not have realized why, despite everything, you were still standing when it felt like you should have broken. That was not coincidence. That was protection. Because Michael does not fight battles in ways that are always visible. His work is often silent, strategic, and exact. He blocks what you never even knew was coming. He redirects what would have pulled you backward. He holds the line when something tries to cross into your life that no longer belongs there. And now, as this cycle reaches its end, his presence becomes even more active. Because the moment a cycle closes is also the moment where resistance tries one last time to interfere. Not to win, but to delay. Not to control, but to confuse. And this is where his role becomes undeniable. He stands at the threshold between what is ending and what is beginning. He ensures that what has been declared finished does not follow you into your next phase. He guards the boundary. He enforces the separation. He makes sure that what once had access to your life no longer does. And this is why you may feel something different right now. A strange sense of calm in the middle of uncertainty. A quiet strength where there used to be hesitation. A feeling that even though you don't have all the answers, you are no longer afraid of what comes next. That is not just emotional relief. That is alignment with protection. Because when Michael stands with you, fear begins to lose its voice. Doubt begins to lose its grip. Confusion begins to clear, not because everything is suddenly explained, but because you are no longer standing in vulnerability. You are standing in authority. And this is what changes everything. Because cycles often continue not just because of circumstance, but because of access. They continue because something still has permission to remain connected to you, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. But when Michael steps in, that access is removed. Not gradually, not partially, but decisively. And once access is removed, the cycle cannot sustain itself. This is why you may feel a growing distance between you and what once affected you so deeply. Situations that used to trigger you no longer carry the same weight. People who once influenced your emotions no longer have the same hold. Thought patterns that once kept you stuck begin to dissolve without effort. That is not you losing interest. That is you being released. Because Michael is not just protecting you from external forces. He is also helping you detach from internal patterns that kept the cycle alive. And this is where his presence becomes personal. He is not just standing around you. He is standing with you. In your decisions. In your awareness. In your ability to recognize what no longer belongs. He strengthens your clarity so you do not second-guess yourself. He reinforces your boundary so you do not reopen what has been closed. He stabilizes your spirit so you do not fall back into what you have already outgrown. This is not about fighting anymore. This is about standing. Standing in the truth that something has ended. Standing in the awareness that you are no longer the same. Standing in the certainty that what is leaving your life cannot return with the same power. And you do not have to force this. You do not have to struggle to maintain it. Because you are not maintaining it alone. Michael is holding the line. And as long as you remain aligned with what has been declared, nothing that has been closed will be able to reopen itself in your life. This is what divine protection looks like when a cycle ends. It is not loud. It is not chaotic. It is non-dramatic. It is firm. It is clear. It is final. And right now that protection is surrounding you. Type "I am divinely protected" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 5151 is now activated around your life. There has been something moving quietly in your life, something that never fully revealed itself, yet always made its presence known through patterns, through resistance, through moments that didn't quite make sense. It never announced itself loudly. It didn't come with obvious signs or clear explanations. Instead, it worked in silence. It showed up as delays that had no logical reason. It appeared as opportunities that almost worked, but never fully aligned. It manifested as emotional heaviness that came without a clear cause. And because it was subtle, because it was not easy to identify, you may have questioned yourself more than the situation itself. You may have wondered if you were overthinking. You may have told yourself it was just timing. You may have tried to rationalize what your intuition was quietly trying to reveal. But what you were sensing was real. Because not every battle is visible. Some of the most powerful resistance you will ever face does not come in obvious forms. It comes through misdirection, through distraction, through subtle interference that shifts your focus just enough to keep you from moving forward clearly. And that is exactly what has been happening. There has been a hidden layer to everything you've experienced. A layer that was not meant to destroy you, but to delay you. A layer that operated not through force, but through confusion. Not through direct confrontation, but through quiet deception. This is why things felt inconsistent. One moment, everything seemed to align. The next moment, something would shift, and the alignment would disappear. One moment, you felt clarity. The next moment, doubt would creep in without explanation. One moment, you felt like you were finally moving forward. The next moment, you found yourself standing still again. That inconsistency was not accidental. It was the result of something working behind the scenes, trying to keep you in a state of uncertainty. Because uncertainty weakens momentum. And momentum is what moves you out of cycles. So if something can interrupt your momentum even slightly, even occasionally, it can keep you within the same loop without you fully realizing why. This is the hidden battle you have been facing. Not a battle of strength, but a battle of clarity. Because the moment you see clearly, the moment you recognize the pattern, the moment you understand what is actually happening, the battle loses its power. And this is why this moment is so significant. Because what was once hidden is no longer hidden. What once felt confusing is now becoming clear. What once operated in silence is now being exposed through your awareness. And this is not happening randomly. This is happening because the cycle is ending. Because once a cycle reaches its conclusion, everything that sustained it must be revealed. not to overwhelm you but to free you. Because you cannot fully step out of something if you do not understand what was keeping you in it. And now you are beginning to understand. You are beginning to see how certain patterns kept repeating. You are beginning to recognize how certain thoughts influenced your decisions. You are beginning to notice how certain situations pulled you back into familiar emotional responses. That awareness is not accidental. That is exposure. And exposure is the final stage before release. Because once something is exposed, it can no longer operate in the same way. It can no longer hide behind confusion. It can no longer disguise itself as coincidence. It can no longer maintain control through subtlety. And this is why you may feel a sudden clarity emerging. Not loud, not overwhelming, but steady. A quiet understanding of what has been happening. A calm recognition of what no longer aligns. A clear sense of what needs to be left behind. This is what happens when the hidden battle comes to light. And here is the most important part you need to understand. The battle was never meant to defeat you. It was meant to refine your awareness. It was meant to sharpen your ability to see beyond the surface. It was meant to prepare you for a level of clarity that you did not have before. Because the next phase of your life will not allow the same level of confusion. It will require precision. It will require discernment. It will require a deeper understanding of what aligns with you and what does not. And that is exactly what this hidden battle has been building within you. So now, as everything begins to come into focus, as the patterns become clearer, as the confusion fades, you are not stepping into something new blindly. You are stepping into it with awareness, with understanding, with clarity that was earned through everything you have just experienced. And that changes everything. Because once you see clearly, you cannot go back to not seeing. Once you understand, you cannot return to misunderstanding. Once you recognize the pattern, you cannot unconsciously repeat it in the same way. And that is why the cycle is ending now. Because the hidden battle has been revealed. And what is revealed can no longer control you. Type ISE clearly now in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 6161 is now activated around your awareness. There comes a moment when continuation is no longer possible. Not because you decided it, not because circumstances force it, but because something deeper, something higher, reaches a limit and declares, this cannot go on any further. That moment is where you are now. Because the cycle you have been in did not just slowly fade. It did not gently come to a close. It reached a breaking point. A point where everything that sustained it, every pattern, every delay, every repeated outcome, could no longer hold itself together. And what you need to understand is this. Cycles do not end simply because time passes. They end when the pressure inside them becomes greater than their ability to continue. And that pressure has been building for a long time. You felt it, even if you could not explain it. The frustration that kept increasing. The exhaustion that grew deeper. The quiet realization that something about this situation was no longer acceptable. At first, you tolerated it. You adjusted. You adapted. You told yourself to be patient, to give it time, to trust that things would eventually shift. But over time, something changed inside you. What once felt manageable began to feel heavy. What once seemed normal began to feel misaligned. What once felt like something you could endure began to feel like something you could no longer carry. That shift was not weakness. That was the beginning of the breaking point. Because cycles often rely on your willingness to continue participating in them. They rely on your tolerance, your patience, your emotional investment. As long as you remain engaged in the same way, the cycle can continue. But the moment your internal state changes, the moment you begin to question it deeply, the moment you no longer feel aligned with what is happening, the foundation of the cycle begins to crack. And this is exactly what has been happening within you. You have outgrown what you once tolerated. You have evolved beyond what once felt acceptable. You have reached a level of awareness where repeating the same experience no longer feels natural. And because of that, the cycle has lost its ability to continue. This is why everything may feel intensified right now. Emotions may feel stronger. Situations may feel more obvious. Patterns may seem clearer than ever before. This is not the cycle becoming stronger. This is the cycle collapsing. Because when something reaches its breaking point, it often becomes more visible just before it ends. Not because it is gaining power, but because it is losing stability. It is like something that has been held together for too long finally beginning to fall apart. And as it falls apart, you can see every piece of it more clearly than ever before. This is where many people misunderstand what is happening. They think that because things feel intense, the cycle is continuing. But intensity does not always mean continuation. Sometimes, intensity is the sign of conclusion. Because everything that was hidden is now surfacing at once. Everything that was subtle is now becoming obvious. Everything that was quietly operating is now revealing itself in full clarity. And this is necessary, because you cannot fully leave something behind if you do not see it for what it truly is. And now you are seeing it. You are seeing the patterns without confusion. You are seeing the repetition without denial. You are seeing the misalignment without trying to justify it. That clarity is what brings the breaking point into completion. Because once something is fully seen, it can no longer function in the same way. And this is where heaven steps in. Because while your internal shift has brought the cycle to its breaking point, it is heaven's declaration that brings it to its end. And heaven has already made that declaration. Enough is enough. No more repetition. No more unnecessary delay. No more continuation of something that has already served its purpose. This is not a gradual transition. This is a definitive end. And this is why the next 24 hours carry so much weight. Because what has been building internally is now aligning with what has been decided spiritually. Your awareness has reached its peak. The cycle has reached its limit. And heaven has reached its conclusion. All three are meeting at the same moment. And when that happens, continuation is no longer possible. The cycle does not have the structure to continue. It does not have the alignment to sustain itself. It does not have the access to remain connected to you in the same way. Because you are no longer the same. And that is what ultimately ends every cycle. Not just external change, but internal transformation. You have changed. Your perception has changed. Your response has changed. Your willingness to remain in the same loop has changed. And because of that, the cycle cannot continue with you. It has reached its breaking point. And now it is ending. Not solely. Not partially. But completely. Type "I have reached my breaking point" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 7171 is now activated around your transformation. There is a moment that does not announce itself with noise, yet it changes everything. A moment that does not need confirmation from the outside world, yet it carries more authority than anything visible. A moment that does not wait for permission, yet once it happens, nothing can reverse it. This is the release moment. This is the exact point where heaven no longer observes, no longer evaluates, no longer waits. It declares. And when that declaration is spoken, it is not a suggestion. It is not a possibility. It is not something that may or may not happen depending on circumstances. It is final. This is the moment Archangel Michael has been preparing you for. Because everything you have experienced, every delay, every repetition, every internal shift has been leading to this exact point where the words are spoken in the unseen realm. It's over. Not quietly, uncertainly, but with absolute authority. And the moment those words are released, everything connected to that cycle begins to detach. Not gradually, instantly. You may not see it all at once in the physical world, but in the spiritual realm, the separation happens immediately. The connections that once held things together are cut. The access that once allowed the cycle to repeat is removed. The influence that once affected your thoughts, your emotions, your decisions loses its hold. This is what release actually looks like. It is not always dramatic. It is not always loud. It is precise. It is decisive. It is complete. And this is why you may feel something shift within you before anything changes around you. A sudden lightness. A quiet sense of relief that you cannot fully explain. A detachment from something that once felt deeply connected to you. That is not imagination. That is release. Because when heaven declares something finished, your spirit responds immediately. Even if your mind is still catching up, even if your environment has not yet reflected the change, your inner world begins to align with what has already been decided. This is why the release moment is so powerful, because it does not depend on external validation. It does not require proof. It does not wait for circumstances to confirm it. It happens first and everything else follows. And here is where many people miss what is happening. They expect release to look like instant external change. They expect everything to suddenly shift in obvious ways. They expect visible confirmation before they accept that something has ended. But that is not how this works. Release begins internally. It begins in your awareness, in your emotional detachment, in your ability to look at something that once affected you and feel nothing pulling you back into it. That is the true sign that it is over. Not the absence of the situation, but the absence of its power over you. Because once something loses its power, it no longer has the ability to continue. And this is where your alignment becomes essential. Because even though heaven has declared it over, you must allow it to be over. You must resist the urge to revisit what hath been released. You must resist the habit of re-engaging with what no longer has authority. You must trust what you feel internally, even if the external has not yet caught up. Because the release moment is not something you force. It is something you recognize. It is something you accept. It is something you move with rather than question. And this is why this moment carries so much weight. Because what is happening right now is not just the end of a cycle. It is the removal of everything that kept that cycle alive. The emotional ties are breaking. The mental patterns are dissolving. The invisible connections are being severed. And once that happens, there is nothing left to sustain what once was. This is the point of no return. Not because you cannot go back physically, but because you will not be the same if you try. Because once release has happened, the connection is gone. And without that connection, the cycle cannot function in the same way. This is why you may feel a sense of stillness right now. Not emptiness, but space. Space where something used to exist. Space where something used to affect you. Space where something used to have influence. That space is not loss. That space is freedom. It is the space created when something that no longer belongs hath been removed. And what you do with that space will determine what comes next. Because once something and something new is always prepared to begin. But you cannot step into it while holding on to what has already been released. And that is why this moment is so important. Because it is not just about what is ending. It is about your willingness to fully let it end. To stand in the truth that it is finished. To trust that what has been removed was meant to be removed. to move forward without looking back at something that no longer has a place in your life. Because heaven has already spoken. The declaration has already been made. And right now you are standing inside the moment where everything changes. Type IT is over in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 8181 is now activated around your release. As this moment of release unfolds, understand that what you are experiencing is not meant to stay with you alone. There are countless others standing at the edge of their own breakthrough, waiting for a message like this to reach them at the exact right time. When you sow into this mission through Super Thanks or PayPal, you are not just supporting content. You are opening a channel for divine timing to reach another soul before their window closes. The word declares that those who sow generously will reap generously, and this is not a distant promise. It is active, alive, and speaking into your moment right now. I feel led to say this clearly. Your action in this moment is not ordinary. It is prophetic. As you release your seed, you align yourself with the very flow of provision and breakthrough you are stepping into. Do not hesitate when your spirit is being stirred. Step forward, support the mission, and allow heaven to multiply what you release. When something finally ends at the level your spirit has been waiting for, it does not always feel the way you expected it to. You may have imagined relief. You may have thought there would be instant clarity, instant peace, instant certainty about everything that comes next. You may have believed that once the cycle closed, you would immediately feel light, free, and completely unaffected by what once held you in place. But the truth is, the moment after release carries its own kind of weight. Not the weight of burden, but the weight of transition. Because when something leaves your life that has been there for a long time, even if it caused pain, confusion, or delay, it still leaves behind an imprint. It leaves behind a space that must now be understood, processed, and realigned. This is the emotional aftershock. And it is completely natural. Because your mind takes time to catch up with what your spirit has already accepted. Your spirit already knows it is over. Your spirit has already detached. Your spirit has already stepped out of the cycle. But your mind, your emotions, your habits are still adjusting. And this is where you may feel something unexpected. A quiet emptiness. A strange stillness. A moment where you find yourself thinking about something that no longer has power but still feels familiar. That does not mean the cycle is still active. That means you are recalibrating. Because for a long time, your thoughts, your emotions, and even your reactions were shaped by that cycle. It influenced how you responded, how you interpreted situations, how you made decisions. And now that it is gone, your system is adjusting to a new reality. One where that influence no longer exists. And that adjustment can feel unfamiliar. You may notice moments where you instinctively expect something to happen, but it doesn't. You may catch yourself preparing for reaction, but it never arrives. You may even find yourself questioning whether it is truly over simply because the absence of the cycle feels different than its presence. This is the emotional aftershock. Not confusion, but reorientation. Because your mind is learning what your spirit already knows. That it is finished. And here is what you need to understand during this phase. Do not mistake the aftershock for a return. Do not interpret the quiet moments as uncertainty. Do not assume that because you still feel something, the cycle still has power. Because feeling is not the same as being connected. You can remember something without being bound to it. You can observe something without being affected by it. You can think about something without stepping back into it. And this is the difference you are learning now. Because the emotional aftershock is not there to pull you back. It is there to show you how far you have already come. It is there to reveal that what once controlled you no longer does. That what once defined your emotional state no longer has authority over you. that what once felt unavoidable is now optional, and this realization takes time to fully settle. That is why you must be patient with yourself in this moment, not passive but aware that your responses may feel different, aware that your emotional patterns are shifting, aware that you are stepping into a version of yourself that no longer operates the same way. Because this is what happens when a cycle truly ends. You do not just lose the cycle, you lose the version of yourself that existed within it, and that can feel unfamiliar at first. Because you are not just letting go of what happened, you are letting go of how you used to respond to it, how you used to think about it, how you used to carry it. And in its place something new is forming, a new sense of stability, a new emotional baseline, a new way of experiencing situations without being pulled into the same patterns. But that new state does not appear instantly. It builds, it settles, it becomes clear over time. And during this process you may feel moments of reflection, not to return to the past but to understand it. You may look back and see things you did not see before. You may recognize patterns that were once hidden. You may even feel a sense of closure that you never thought you would reach. That is not you going backward. That is you completing the process. Because true closure is not just the end of something. It is the understanding of it. And now you are reaching that understanding. You are seeing clearly what once felt confusing. You are feeling differently about what once felt overwhelming. You are standing in a place where the past no longer defines your present. And that is the true sign that it is over. Not just externally, but internally. Completely. So if you feel something shifting inside you right now, if you notice the quiet, if you sense the difference, do not question it. Do not try to fill it. Do not rush past it. Because this moment, this stillness, this emotional reset is where your new foundation is being formed. And once it settles, you will realize something powerful. You are no longer who you were inside that cycle. You are free from it. Not temporarily, but permanently. Type I accept the NEW version of me in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 9191 is now activated around your transformation. When something truly ends, something else does not wait long to begin. Not because you force it, not because you rush into it, but because the moment space is created, something new is already prepared to fill it. And this is where you are now. Standing in the space where the old has been removed and the new is beginning to reveal itself. But here is what you need to understand clearly. The new path does not always appear in the way you expected. It does not always arrive with a clear sign, a loud announcement, or an obvious direction. It does not always come with immediate certainty or complete understanding. Instead, it begins quietly, subtly, precisely. It starts as a shift in your awareness, a different way of seeing things, a new perspective that feels more aligned, a sense of clarity that was not there before. You may not have all the answers yet, but something feels different. Something feels open. Something feels possible. That is the new path. Because the new path is not just about external opportunities. It is about internal alignment. It is about becoming the version of yourself that is capable of walking into what is next without repeating what has already ended. And this is why the transition matters. Because if the new path appeared too quickly without giving you time to adjust, you would carry the same patterns into it. You would respond the same way. You would think the same way. You would recreate what has already been closed in a different form. But now that cannot happen. Because you have changed. You have seen what you needed to see. You have felt what you needed to feel. You have understood what you needed to understand. And because of that, the path opening in front of you is not the same as the one behind you. It is not a continuation. It is a shift. And the shift will begin to show itself in ways you may not immediately recognize. New ideas may come to you unexpectedly. And new opportunities may appear without warning. New connections may form that feel different from what you are used to. But more importantly, your response to these things will be different. You will not feel the same hesitation. You will not feel the same confusion. You will not feel the same emotional pull that once influenced your decisions. Instead, you will feel something steady, a quiet confidence, a calm awareness, a sense that you are moving in the right direction even if you cannot fully explain why. That is alignment. And alignment is what allows the new path to unfold naturally. Because the new path does not require you to force anything. It does not require you to chase what is meant for you. It does not require you to prove yourself in the same way you once felt you had to. Instead, it meets you where you are aligned. And this is what changes everything. Because for a long time, you may have felt like you had to push through resistance, push through confusion, push through uncertainty. But the new path does not respond to force. It responds to clarity. It responds to presence. It responds to your ability to recognize what aligns with you and what does not. And now you have that ability because of everything you have just come through. So as this new path begins to open, do not look for it in the same way you used to. Do not expect it to follow the same patterns. Do not try to predict it based on your past experiences, because it will not match them. You will feel different, more stable, more natural, more aligned with who you are now, not who you were before. And this is where trust becomes important. Not blind trust, but grounded trust. The kind of trust that comes from knowing that what has been removed was removed for a reason. That what has ended needed to end. That what is opening now is not random. It is the result of everything aligning at the right moment. And this is the moment you are in. The moment where the path ahead is no longer blocked by what was behind you. The moment where movement is no longer restricted by old patterns. The moment where you can step forward without carrying what no longer belongs to you. And you will begin to feel this more clearly with each step. A growing sense of direction. A deeper connection to your own awareness. A stronger ability to recognize what is right for you without needing external confirmation. This is the new path taking form. Not all at once, but step by step, moment by moment. And as it unfolds, you will realize something important. You are not searching for your next phase anymore. You are already in it. Type "I step into my NEW path" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 1010 is now activated around your next chapter. Now that the cycle has been closed, now that the release has already been declared, now that the new path has begun to open, there is one final phase that determines how fully you step into what has been prepared for you. And that phase is alignment. Because even though heaven has spoken, even though the decision has already been made, your experience of what comes next depends on how you respond in this exact window of time. The next 24 hours are not just about what is happening around you. They are about what is happening within you. They are about how you choose to stand, how you choose to respond, how you choose to align with what has already been declared. Because this is where the test appears. Not as something obvious, not as something that clearly announces itself, but as subtle moments, quiet decisions, internal shifts that seem small yet carry significant weight. You may be presented with something familiar, a thought that tries to pull you back into an old pattern, a situation that looks similar to what you have already experienced, a conversation that feels like it belongs to the version of your life that has already ended. And in that moment you will have a choice. Not a dramatic choice, Not a loud, obvious decision, but a quiet, internal one. Will you respond the same way you always have, or will you respond as the person who has already moved beyond it? This is the test of alignment, because alignment is not proven in comfort. It is proven in moments where you have the opportunity to return but choose not to. It is proven in moments where the familiar appears but no longer feels right. It is proven in moments where your old response is available but your new awareness overrides it. And this is what will happen in these next 24 hours. You will not be asked to fight. You will not be asked to force anything. You will not be asked to create change through effort. You will be asked to remain aligned with what has already changed. To stand in the truth that it is over even if something tries to look the same. To trust your awareness even if your mind tries to question it. To move forward even if part of you feels the pull of what used to be familiar. Because alignment is not about doing more. It is about doing differently. It is about recognizing that the version of you who existed within that cycle is no longer who you are. And because of that, your response must reflect that change. This is where your clarity becomes your guide. Because you no longer need to guess. You no longer need to wonder what is right for you. You no longer need to seek external validation for decisions that you already feel internally. You know. You feel it. You recognize it immediately. Its sense of knowing, that quiet certainty, that clear awareness, that is what you must follow. Not the noise. Not the doubt. Not the familiar patterns that try to reappear. Because those things no longer have authority over you. They only have the ability to test whether you still respond to them. And this is where your strength is revealed. Not in resistance, but in stillness. In your ability to remain grounded even when something tries to disrupt your clarity. In your ability to observe without reacting, to notice without engaging, to see without stepping back into. Because the moment you choose alignment, the moment you respond from your new awareness instead of your old habits, the cycle fully releases its hold. Not partially, not temporarily, but completely. And this is what solidifies everything that has already been declared. Because heaven has already closed the cycle, but your alignment ensures that it remains closed. And this is why this window is so important. Because what you do now, how you respond now, how you choose to stand now, sets the tone for everything that follows. Not because you are creating the outcome, but because you are confirming it. You are confirming that you are no longer available for what has already ended. You are confirming that you have stepped into a new level of awareness. You are confirming that you trust what has been revealed to you without needing to return to what has already been removed. And this confirmation, this alignment, this quiet but powerful shift is what locks in your transition. So in these next 24 hours, pay attention. Not to everything around you, but to yourself. To how you feel. To how you respond. To what you choose to engage with and what you choose to release without hesitation. Because this is not just a moment of ending. It is a moment of becoming. And the way you align now determines how fully you step into everything that is waiting for you on the other side of this cycle. Type "I remain aligned" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 1111 is now activated around your decisions. There is a difference between something ending and something being sealed. An ending can feel temporary. It can leave room for doubt. It can leave space for questioning. It can make you wonder if what has closed might somehow reopen again. But a seal is different. A seal is final. A seal is irreversible. A seal is the moment where heaven does not just close a chapter, it locks it in a way that ensures it will never define you again. And this is the moment you have now entered. Because what has happened over these last 24 hours is not just the ending of a cycle. It is the sealing of it. meaning what you have walked through, what you have endured, what you have finally stepped out of can no longer return to your life with the same power, the same influence, or the same access. Not because you are forcing it away, but because it has been permanently removed from your alignment. This is what Archangel Michael means when he says, "It's over." He does not mean paused. He does not mean delayed. He does not mean temporarily resolved. He means finite. And once something is sealed in that way, your life begins to shift in ways that go beyond what you can immediately see. Because now you are not just free from the cycle. You are positioned beyond it. You are no longer reacting to it. You are no longer shaped by it. You are no longer carrying it into your future. And this changes everything about how your life unfolds from this point forward. Because when something is truly sealed, it does not follow you into your next chapter. It cannot recreate itself in a different form. It cannot disguise itself as something new. It cannot quietly return through familiar patterns. It is done. Completely. And this is why what comes next will feel different from anything you have experienced before. Not just because your circumstances may change, but because you have changed at a level that cannot be reversed. Your awareness is different now. Your responses are different now. Your understanding of what aligns with you and what does not is stronger than it has ever been. And because of that, your future will not repeat your past. Not in the same way. Not with the same patterns. Not with the same outcomes. Because the version of you that participated in those cycles no longer exists. And this is what makes this moment so powerful. Because you are not just stepping into something new. You are stepping into something that is no longer connected to what you have left behind. This is where true transformation begins. Not in the struggle. Not in the repetition. But in the moment where everything that held you in place is no longer part of your reality. And from this point forward, your life will begin to reflect that. You will notice it in the way you think, in the way you respond to situations, in the way you recognize what is right for you without hesitation. You will feel it in the way your energy shifts, in the way certain things no longer affect you, and the way you naturally move toward what aligns and away from what does not. And over time you will see it clearly, in the opportunities that appear, in the connections that feel different from anything you've experienced before, in the direction your life begins to take without the resistance that once slowed you down. This is what happens when a cycle is not just ended but sealed. And this is why this moment is not something to question. It is something to accept. Fully. Completely. Without hesitation. Because everything you have just moved through has brought you to this exact point. A point where you are no longer carrying what was never meant to stay. A point where you are no longer repeating what was never meant to continue. A point where your life is no longer defined by the cycles that once surrounded you. This is your new foundation. This is your new beginning. And this time it is not temporary. It is permanent. So stand in it. Trust it. Move forward without looking back. Because what has been sealed is not meant to be reopened. And what is now ahead of you has already been prepared for the version of you who has finally stepped free. Type IT is permanently done in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 1212 is now activated around your new life. As this cycle is sealed and your life steps into divine completion, understand this truth. Every soul still trapped in their own cycle is waiting for a message like this to reach them before their moment passes. When you give through Super Thanks or the PayPal link in the description or QR code, you are not supporting a video. You are planting a seed into God's harvest, releasing light into places where darkness still tries to hold people back. The word speaks now, alive and active. Cast your bread upon the waters, for you will find it after many days, and this is your moment to act in faith, not hesitation. I feel this strongly. When you move in obedience right now, you align yourself with the same flow of release and breakthrough that has just touched your life. This is not just generosity. This is a prophetic action that multiplies beyond what you can see. Your giving becomes a river that carries this message into another life at the exact second they need it. Do not delay this moment. Step forward, sow your seed, and let heaven respond to your obedience.